Welcome back to Lisa's Family Table. We're on video 3 of our whole tenderloin series.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you what, that crostini was wonderful.
It was fabulous, right?
And I'm looking forward to this because I love beef stroganoff.
And this is kind of an interesting spin on it. So I hope that y'all will follow us along on this recipe. Let me kind of walk you through what we're gonna do. So as you saw in our first video where Russell broke down the tenderloin, the end pieces, he's cubed them up into these pieces here. And beef stroganoff is actually a dish that was created by a French chef for a wealthy aristocrat in Russia. So that's why you see the sour cream, but instead of sour cream, we're gonna use crème fraiche. I think it gives a different depth of flavor, still the same creaminess, still has that sort of tart background to it. And we've got our mushrooms, we've got some shallots, we've got some of my homemade beef stock, and we're gonna go ahead and begin. What I've done here is I've already started to put some water on to boil. I've already salted the water. And we're gonna serve this with some white egg noodles because that's how I grew up with it, and that's the way I like to eat it. And so we're gonna start over here. Bring up a pan, again with some neutral oil. I'm using avocado in this case. And what we wanna do is we need to brown the meat. Now this is beef tenderloin, so we don't want to overcook it. So what we're gonna do is we've got a little flour, put it in our dish here, like this. And then we've got our LSR, and we're going to put some of that in here. Okay. And then we're going to do some paprika to give it some color. Okay. And that's gonna be our flavors to begin with. And just kind of stir that around. What we want to do is we want to put our beef in here and get a good flavor on it. Put the flour on here. We don't want a lot of flour, just enough to just kind of give it a little texture when we brown it. It will also, the flour will aid us in making our sauce a little creamier. And so what we want to do is we want to take this beef and put it in the pan, which you can hear it sizzling, it's hot. We don't want to overcrowd the pan. We're just gonna get a sear on these because this is a prime tenderloin. It's okay if it's on the rare side. When we stir it back in, it'll have some time to cook. We're just trying to get some color on it. Our dog is sitting right here. He smells the meat. He's like, I know there's something delicious in there and I'm hoping my mommy and daddy will give me some. Now these are cremini mushrooms. What my husband did was he wiped them clean. You really don't want to submerge mushrooms in water if you can avoid it. I mean, if they're really dirty, you can put them under the sink and you can wash them, but don't submerge them. So he's cleaned them and he's basically cut them in 3. So I love mushrooms, so I always put a little bit more than what my recipe calls for. And we're gonna put a little bit of the butter in. Put about 1.5 tablespoons of the butter. And we want to put a little bit of the salt, which will help bring the moisture out of the mushrooms, which is what you want. I had turned my heat off because it was getting a little too hot. I'm turning it back on. Again, you have to just adjust. I'm on medium temperature right now. So if you'll take a little extra time to allow the mushrooms to brown before you create the sauce, they'll be so much more flavorful. The texture will be much more appealing. And you always want to cut a mushroom bigger than you want it to be because they do shrink quite a bit. So these were bigger mushrooms. If they were smaller, we would have probably just halved them. So we're just going to let that kind of sit there and get happy. What you'll see is in a second, a lot of water is going to start coming out because they do really have a lot of water in them. We don't quite have the browning or caramelization that we want just yet. We're going to give it another minute or so. Once I start to see that, then I'm going to add some of the shallots that we talked about earlier, and then we're going to bring that down a little bit.
Oh, that's looking great.
Yeah.
Man.
And that's why you want to be on a medium to low temperature here because you want that water to release itself.
But you can see how the mushrooms have reduced quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay, so these are starting to get the color that I was looking for. So now I'm going to take some of my shallots and go in there. And we want them to kind of get some translucent color to them and put a little bit more salt. So we're going to put the noodles in. Probably more than I wanted. And we're going to go for 8 minutes on those. Okay, this is perfect here. So now what we want to do is put some of our flavor profiles in, right? So we want to put some of the Dijon mustard in. And then we're going to put the stock in because we want to get some reduction going before we add the cream. Bring that together. Worcestershire. Okay, so now I'm turning this down because I'm going to add the crème fraiche. If it's up high, it could break. This is 8 ounces. So you're going to put quite a bit of it in, right? And the reason I'm on low is I want this to incorporate slowly. I don't want it to come up and curdle or break. Now that I have it incorporated, I'm going to bring it up so I can kind of reduce the sauce a little bit and get the consistency I want. I don't want to put the steak back in just yet because I don't want my tenderloin to overcook. I'm going to put a little bit more of this in. I think it needs it. Put some parsley in. Okay, so the noodles are just about done. The meat is in here. I'm going to add it back in. So I'm going to put that in there like that. And you can see I really want it to be a little bit more saucy, so I'm just going to add just a smidge more of my stock in to thin it out a bit. And the noodles should be nearing done. Check them. They're done. So we can turn that off. That's done. Take some of our butter, stir that into our noodles. Now we want a plate. So I'm going to grab our bowl. We're going to put our buttered noodles in here like this. Okay. And then you serve it just like that. Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, good, right? Taste it with the wine that you selected.
Yeah.
Here's to you, honey. From our table to yours, we hope you try this dish. Thank you for coming to Lisa's Family Table.
And keep cooking.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you can get notification of our upcoming videos. We post every Thursday and you won't want to miss a single video.